Like the wild salmon they're fighting to protect. A diverse group of BC citizens recently completed a migration of their own to the provincial capital in Victoria. They converged on the lawn of the Legislature to cap off a 400-kilometer walk for wild salmon led by biologist Alexandra Morton down Vancouver Island in the preceding weeks.
So I'm thinking we get to keep our salmon. Not because I walked down the island, but because every one of you showed up.
This is the biggest rally bringing First Nations, environmental groups, citizens, everybody that we have ever seen on an issue like this. And
the march, which featured large, colorful crowds and spirited First Nations ceremonies in dozens of communities along the route, was designed to send a message to governments to clear our coastal wild salmon migration routes of ecologically damaging open net salmon farms, over 90% of which are owned by 3 Norwegian corporations. The migrators came from all over British Columbia, Washington State, and further afield. Early on, 3 young women had walked from their respective communities in Kingcome Inlet and Tofino on opposite sides of Vancouver Island to join the march. In the days leading up to the grand finale, the walk down the island received warm receptions in Duncan and the seaside community of Sydney, where the group was joined by a canoe full of supporters who had paddled all the way from Hope, down the Fraser River and across the Georgia Strait.
Hey, that's really fantastic, guys. You're amazing.
Really a great way to wrap up an incredible journey, right down from Hope down the Fraser.
We met lots of campers, lots of fishermen, lots of people just sitting on wharfs, on docks. Everyone was in support. Everyone who lived near the river or had anything to do with the river and knew about the issue were in support of getting fish farms out of the ocean.
Saturday morning began early as the walkers set out for their final destination in Victoria.
It's inspiring, and I want to see more people in political life take up this cause and say we've learned now, we've learned our lesson. If we want wild salmon, and we do want wild salmon in British Columbia, we have to protect it.
Along the way, crowds continued to swell at various stop-off points approaching the city center. By the time they reached Centennial Square downtown, the crowd was in the thousands. There, Morton was presented with a ceremonial eagle feather from First Nations, the highest honor they could bestow upon the salmon warrior they count as one of their own.
Wilderness tourism needs Pacific wild salmon, not Norway Atlantic salmon in pens.
As the group marched down Government Street, joining more citizens awaiting them at the Legislature, the crowd topped out at close to 5,000.
Still coming in from downtown, folks. You're making history today. I can't think of any place I'd rather be right now. It's inspiring to look out there and see all you folks.
And it's that intuition that has brought us from many different places, from all points of the compass, from out of the comfort of our homes and our families, that has brought us here today to serve notice on the provincial government, on the government of Canada, on the Norwegian corporations that are wreaking havoc in the pristine waters along the coast and imposing their absolutely toxic and repugnant fish farming industry on us.
If there was a key theme to the afternoon, besides the push to move open net salmon farms out of coastal waters and into land-based closed containment systems, it was the unprecedented unification of Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal British Columbians.
It's great to see us all getting together at last. There's been a bit of conflict.
We've always been told that our drums beat like a heartbeat amongst our First Nations people. But I've heard all of us beating together on the drum. We shall move forward to make every effort that Alexandra has done
to ensure that there is a place for our children.
The event was highlighted by powerful speeches from diverse citizens, some voices familiar, others new.
I want to say something to the people who inhabit this building a lot, as I once did. You bastards don't own those fish. You don't own those rivers. You don't own that environment. That's ours. You are the reason that we're in this trouble. We expect you to make up for that by going back to Ottawa as a government and saying that people of British Columbia will not stand this any longer. Get rid of those fish farms.
We have come this far. We are so close, but we are not quite at the end. And it would be great if everyone here today could write a letter or send an email to their MP showing your support for wild salmon, to put pressure on the government to pass this bill and pass other legislature that will protect our environment and our wild salmon. Thank you.
And the wilderness tourism industry shot back at the fish farmers' favorite jobs defense.
Some of us heard the minister in the House there said shame on these marchers because they're going to destroy the farmers' jobs. Never is there any mention of the people whose jobs are being destroyed right now. Our operators represent the people who take people from around the world to see the bears, the eagles, the whales. We're very concerned that our livelihood is going to disappear under the current regime of the farms. The farms brag about there's 6,000 jobs in BC. That's total direct, indirect, and other jobs. Our numbers are about 40,000 jobs. There's room for farmers if they would go to closed containment, but not where they are now.
The next destination for some of these salmon farming critics is the headquarters of the industry in Norway, where the two largest global operators and owners of BC farms, Marine Harvest and Cermaq Mainstream, are having their annual general meetings in Oslo.
And we're going to be going to the shareholders meeting in Norway. So we'll be bringing your message, and
it remains to be seen how provincial and federal governments back home respond to the voice of the people so clearly enunciated here.
It all comes down to this. Do we live in a democracy or not? This is a test.
But the migration has been undeniably successful already in terms of rallying the public together. These committed citizens undoubtedly face a tough road ahead to reach their ultimate goal of clearing a path for the recovery of wild salmon. But they've taken some big steps in recent weeks. And as the migration showed, to save their sacred wild salmon, they'd walk to the ends of the earth. This is Damien Gillis for the Common Sense Canadian.
Many of us, and myself included, think you just need to leave British Columbia or go into closed tanks because you're breaking the basic laws of the salmon.
I have to disappoint you. We are not going to leave Canada.